I really love fighting games. It's one of the two genres that I just always seem to have fun with, even when they're just relatively average. But there are definitely fighting games I enjoy more than others. For Honor is one of those games that I believe started out as being pretty average with a cool concept, but has improved over time to being a pretty solid competitive fighting game. For Honor is analogous to Siege in terms of having a good concept but done with poor execution due to technical and design flaws. It has improved over time to the point where I would say that it's more than worth your time to at least try the game. However, this game doesn't get a shining recommendation from me like Siege does. Why? Well, by all accounts, For Honor is a fun game with a solid core concept that should appeal to a competitive audience, but For Honor hasn't seemed to grab the attention of audiences like Siege has. They both followed a relatively same path in terms of development, and both are in the genre I like, but For Honor seems to fail at captivating me like other fighting games, like Skullgirls or Tekken 7 can. This isn't a review, but rather a discussion on how a great game with plenty of marketing behind it can still fail at capturing an audience's attention, and have a relatively hard time attracting new players. Now, let's delve into the reason why For Honor has failed to meet expectations. I think when it comes to For Honor, the issue is twofold in terms of gameplay. The first part has to deal with how strict, as far as fighting games go, it is in enforcing game logic. The game leans into enforcing game logic extremely rigidly to the point where animations can actually be misleading. For example, this fight between me as Valkyrie and Tiandi. Tiandi very obviously dodged my Valk charge with his undodgeable attack since I let it go a little too early, but the game just for some reason gave me it because the game's logic said that Tiandi had ended his dodge window, but the animations are out of sync and he appeared to still be dodging when I hit it. It just looks weird and doesn't make sense. Undodgeable attacks allow you to dodge attacks, but players can't dodge the undodgeable thrown. But sometimes unblockables will cancel them even if it was in the wrong direction. It's frustrating because you kind of just have to learn how to cheese the system, which new players will have a hard time learning because of how counterintuitive it is. Undodgeables in themselves are weird since they lock onto a player and no matter what direction it's thrown and sometimes how far, they'll just sort of levitate towards you. This, I don't think would be as bothersome in other games, but because of the reliance on animations, it just leads to situations where things are misread, and it's really not a player's fault unless they already know before how it works. Which really brings me to my first major criticism. Over time, things like this can be learned, but they're counterintuitive and can create bad habits that need to be broken when going into higher ranks where the game gets better, which I'll delve into more later into the video. These issues are taken advantage of in low-ranked games where cheesing is highly prevalent as people can't react fast enough or don't know what to do about it. Now, normally the solution to said problems is to just get good scrub, but the problem is learning how to deal with this actually forms bad habits that will get completely disregarded once reaching higher ranks. Not only that, but some characters become effectively useless due to how people play in low ranks, which essentially halves the character roster for what is viable in low rank, which becomes the second part of the issue. Characters like Lawbringer have to utilize a mix of shoves and parries to play effectively, but due to light spam being predominant, for someone who hasn't really developed reaction time to parry lights, he's effectively useless. If a Lawbringer player does learn how to deal with light spams, then he'll get into high gold and then immediately get punished for expecting light attacks as mix-ups and cancels become more common, but because he's in that weird transition phase, he has to expect both while still trying to break that habit. This ultimately leads to new players being frustrated by constant cheesing from low ranks and players who are just better. The transition from low to high rank essentially just creates a weird crater in players' progression where they get destroyed by players both below and above them.
I went from losing pretty bad to winning pretty hard. I beat him
The community and how people play really cement what is bad about this game. In For Honor, there are some just unspoken rules most people go by. Most people who play 2v2s, for example, will not try and attack the other person once they kill their enemy because most people enjoy the 1v1 aspect of For Honor, and in both duels and brawls you don't use environmental kills. These are just sort of community rules that help make the game fair and more enjoyable, but depending on who you are playing against, people break it and it really does make the game less enjoyable since fighting more than one enemy at a time in For Honor is just awful as the game clearly wasn't designed for it. Revenge is sort of supposed to help offset it, but people won't fight you while you're in it, just leading to more frustration. People will also just abuse cheese strats for easy wins rather than trying to fight, like this one Kensei I fought, who did pretty much the same thing all game and forced me to just constantly poke him instead of doing cool mix-ups and combos like I try to do with Valk. Then, if they win, they instantly leave and won't rematch. For anyone who's new to For Honor, welcome to what it's going to be like until you're out of low rank. A toxic player base with nothing but easy cheat strats. It's why I really don't have that much desire to play For Honor after just a few hours, especially after not playing for a long time. But after sticking with it for a while like I did a year ago, high rank is some of the best aspects of the game. It's less about spamming winning strategies and suddenly the game becomes about playing mind games with an opponent. High rank players know how to counter just about any normal strategy, so the meta shifts to doing mix-ups, adding varieties, and having combos that can be altered on the fly. Things like Orochi's light spam all of a sudden are completely useless, and in place of it, Orochis who utilize heavy cancels and deflects to create openings for damage, forcing you to really analyze the other player and think about your actions. This is when the game becomes fun and way less frustrating. They will also rematch and just adhere to rules because they really want to have a fun time with the competitive aspect of this game. You also learn the most in high ranks as you learn new combos, what are risky and safe plays, and when to change playstyles along with the strengths and weaknesses of each character. But in order to reach that point, you have to suffer through the absolute worst of the game, and when that's the first experience with the game, it's extremely hard to get past it. Siege is simply toxic with stupid things people say, but For Honor has toxic players that will do more to stunt someone's growth than just simply say or do stupid things. I've seen it more times than I can count where I go to parry an attack and the animation will play, but the attack will simply just go through like I never played it at all. The game, as said before, utilizes a lot of animations, so when there's some mismatch from what server things happen versus the animations, it leads to many, many stupid what moments. Very weird to me.
What? I parried that shit. I'm still mad that I got interrupted. Threw a fucking side heavy and he interrupted it somehow.
Yeah, by the way, it showed even on my screen that you got the parry, and it just fucking went
did it?
through. Yeah.
Oh, that's unfortunate. That must have been just a ping issue then.
The game also might as well reward high ping players, as the higher the enemy's ping, the worse it gets. There have been times where I get the prompt for an execution and then the server changes its mind on what happened, which then leads to me magically getting parried and then light spammed to death. It's just bad. For Honor is really a great game once you get out of low rank. But till then, it's a frustrating game, and I think that's why the player count is increasing rather slowly. Most people who are new to Siege have a whole sandbox to experiment with, along with a pretty polished experience no matter what rank you're in. But in For Honor, there isn't a huge sandbox, but rather a tightly focused fighting game. But the concept fails in low rank, where the name of the game is to spam, but is wonderfully exhibited in high rank. For Honor, like most fighting games, is a mind game, but For Honor leans on this concept of playing mind games heavily by providing a generous window to counter things, which forces people to really think about their moves. But that same amazing design is used against players who may play more casually or aren't as seasoned enough to deal with it. For that reason, I think that's why this game has such a mixed reception right now, that and the fact that Warmonger exists. Those who love the game stick with it because of the concept, but those who hate it are frustrated with the playstyle of low-ranked players, preventing them from getting better. It's a shame that such a unique game is embroiled in such issues, but I think this is the issue with Ubisoft's strategy behind releasing a game early and trying to continue it forever. They focus too hard on trying to make the game competitive with little consideration for casual players, along with the game being released with plenty of technical issues. Now the developers are stuck between producing new content while still trying to fix the technical side of the game, while constantly rebalancing and reworking characters to work with the new ever-shifting meta. Sorry for missing an upload last week. I was having trouble trying to keep up between work and college, but now I have a better work schedule. I should be able to keep up with everything. Not quite sure, but anyways, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you want to see more content from me, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Until then, this is Bloody Roses saying Zaijian.